Hello everybody! The article that I chose to review is called Preschool Teachers' Use of Strategies to Support Social Emotional Competence in Young Children. This study took place in a relatively large city in Turkey, and the purpose of this study was to investigate Turkish preschool teachers' implementation of social and emotional teaching strategies associated with the pyramid model. So there was a few questions that they asked for the study. One, which social emotional teaching strategy do Turkish preschool teachers use? Two, is there a relationship between the level of preschool teachers' use of social emotional teaching strategies and A, the type of classroom, B, the age groups that they worked with, C, training they received about addressing challenging behaviors, D, training they received about supporting social emotional development, E, years of teaching experience, and F, the number of adults in the classroom, and G, the number of children in the classroom. The study was conducted in 103 preschool classrooms. The children were ages 3 to 5 years old, and there was a couple different types of classroom settings. There was the general preschool setting, where most of the children were typically developing. There was inclusive preschool education classrooms, where children with and without disabilities were educated together. And there were segregated preschool classrooms, where all the children had a diagnosed disability. 32% of the classrooms in the study were general preschool education classrooms, 34% were inclusive preschool, and 34% were segregated preschool classrooms. "63% of teachers reported receiving training on challenging behaviors, 44% of teachers reported attending training on social emotional development, and 28% of teachers reported attending training focused on challenging behaviors and social emotional development. None of the teachers that participated had any exposure to professional development programs focused on the pyramid model." So data was collected using the Teaching Pyramid Observation Tool, or TPOT for short. And people are specifically trained in how to use the TPOT and how to observe and score a classroom. The results were really interesting. There was lots of different areas that they had results in, such as implementation of practices associated with the pyramid model, practices associated with schedule, routine, and activities, transitions, supportive conversations, and there were several other categories as well. If you're at all familiar with the pyramid model or have had TPOT coaching, you will also know what those different categories are. There's also a section of red flags. The results of the study showed that preschool teachers were only really able to implement very low levels of practices associated with those key practices and response to challenging behaviors. And there were high levels of behaviors associated with red flags. They have found that in other countries, such as South Korea, China, and the United States, that those countries have much higher rates of implementation of key practices, and has shown that those countries that have higher implementation rates have better professional development and coaching within their districts. I have found this to be true myself. I've gone to many pyramid trainings, and sometimes I still have a hard time knowing if I'm using something correctly, a strategy correctly, or if I should be using a different strategy, as I have not had the actual coaching yet. So that's something that my school district does after approximately 3 years within the district. But it's definitely something that is talked about often and implemented in all of the teaching that I do. The social emotional development is such an important area for all preschool programs, and that development helps children have a strong foundation for later learning in life. Further studies that the article discussed would be possible research across the country to see if multiple observations and measurements has similar results so that they could have a better generalization of the findings. They also discussed having different professional development programs available and what that would look like. And then one thing I thought was really interesting is they said future research could explore Turkish preschool teachers' acceptability of practices associated with the pyramid model, which I thought was really interesting because here in the United States, or at least in Minnesota, we put such a huge emphasis on the social emotional development of the young children. And it would be really interesting to see what other countries feel is an important foundation for children to have for later in life, if they would agree with the pyramid model or think something differently of it. But in general, the article also found that Turkish teachers need more training focused on universal classroom strategies, social emotional teaching strategies, and individualized behavior supports. So overall, I really liked this article. I found it to be very interesting, and I like that the authors were using the pyramid model because I've had a lot of experience and training in that. Thank you so much.